Good evening, everybody. I'm Dr. Lenahan. Welcome to the Tuckahoe Middle School Grade 5th to 6th Transition Information Night. Let me introduce the participants. Mr. Chris Keogh, our Director of Curriculum, and also handling the technology tonight. Mr. Scott DeBellis, the Assistant Principal. Mr. Eric Sullivan, our School Psychologist, and Ms. Debbie DiFrancesco is logging in. A little technical difficulties. I know there's thunderstorms in the area. That's the panel for tonight. Mr. Moore, unfortunately, is ill and won't be able to attend, so we'll be filling in for him. We thank him for his willingness to participate, though. Just taking you through, I thought I'd begin. We'll take questions at the end of this presentation, so we're all here to help you and make sure the adjustment to your child's middle school start next September is a successful one. But I thought I'd begin just by talking about the education, the evolving role of the middle school. It's been a long journey for a new institution that was only formed 40 years ago. Initially, it was developed to address the social and emotional challenges uniquely related to adolescence. Basically, adolescence was something that came about in the 50s with the middle class emerging. Teenagers all of a sudden didn't have to go to work as quickly as possible, and school needed to adjust to the changing societal needs. As it evolved over the decades, society and family norms continued to change. And we realized social emotional needs really needed to be increased. About 10 or 15 years ago, New York State requirements, technology innovations, global connections, really just changed the game regarding middle school. So SEL was the primary factor for their forming. However, the state about 15, 20 years ago decided to bring in requirements on assessment skills to students. So the academics became a much more increased focus. Add that to technology innovations. I don't have to tell you about societal innovations in this first 20 years of this century. So society has changed, technology has changed. And we're going to talk more on how we adapted the technology really to improve instruction and learning, which all schools have. But I will submit Tuckahoe was in the forefront about 15 years ago in leading innovation. We were the second district to introduce Chromebooks at the middle school, and we've been moving very quickly since. And then, of course, global connections. I mean, the world has changed with the internet, and that has impacted, obviously, our ability to have instruction and basically increase the learning needed for students to be successful when they get to high school. So we've been addressing these complex issues. Basically, the norms have all changed, but when you put COVID on top of it, it's been a challenging time, but one that the middle school has been really welcome and met, I think, very successfully. So we'll talk about post-pandemic, and I hope the word post is accurate. I know it's been fading out. So going to the next slide, talking about the strategic plan. The district strategic plan in the middle school it's been very helpful regarding how we follow SEL. We basically have our students, it's a small school setting. There are team meetings bi-weekly at the middle school. Mr. Sullivan was on the line, gets to know the kids very closely because we're so small. There's definitely teachers and basically our pupil services, Ms. DiFrancesco, Mr. Sullivan, push into classrooms, working on things like internet safety, stranger danger, positive relationships. So this is an ongoing factor. It's also embedded in the curricular areas. Our students take health, Mr. Calaswano, and it's a very successful program. Phase 2 of the strategic plan is diverse learners. Obviously, with brain study and science research, we understand how students learn so much differently from each other. Fortunately, we've been in the forefront of technology. Our teachers are very adept at blended learning, using different modalities of instruction to reach diverse learners. Also within the curricular areas, we emphasize diverse learning on students. We scaffold it as needed and progress and have advanced students as needed, all within the classroom setting. Contemporary teaching and learning, Mr. Keogh is greatly involved with that. Basically, we have a program coming this summer on IDA. Many of our teachers are going for project-based learning. We use blended learning as a factor where basically students integrate visual literacy, visual learning with the group instruction and with direct instruction. So The modalities are there that really effectively implement contemporary learning and teaching. Finally, professional learning. Our teachers are always willing to grow and change. As I mentioned this summer, several of them are going for project-based learning, IDE, which is an 8-day course. Mr. Kia will give you more updates on that. We have a summer curriculum program. Our students, this past conference day, our teachers were really trained on more brain research, how students learn, how we can use executive functions to really maximize the social emotional learning. So it's an ongoing process. The world is changing. Students are changing. The same students in the middle school 10 years ago are certainly not the students that are there today. And I'm very proud of how we've adapted. Mr. Keo, would you like to add anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a district-wide perspective, this is what all three schools operate under. The strategic plan, these 4 pillars of our plan, but really the middle school is in many ways the heart, because you'll see the ways in which all of these areas are really critical to the success of the middle school. Today, we just had a celebration honoring the 25th anniversary of the inception of the middle school, and in it, all of these 4 pillars had some role to play. Whether or not it's recognizing our students' social emotional learning needs, whether or not it's recognizing that they're all learning differently and they all bring different experiences to learning and they all take in information differently. Our responsibility as professionals to be on top of contemporary teaching and learning strategies. And then also the thing weaving it all together is how we train and equip staff to meet all of these needs on a cyclical, continual basis. So yeah, I think the Tuckahoe strategic plan is brought to full life at the middle school.
It's a great guideline. I'll turn it over to Ms. DeFrancesco regarding the schedule. What's a typical 6th grade schedule? Ms. D?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. Our typical 6th grade schedule seems very complicated in the beginning. It's really not. And we are around all the time. All our offices are on the 1st floor, where all the 6th grade classrooms are. So we're around all the time to help the kids. So they get a little nervous about their schedule, but we're right there to help them. So first period, they come in, they'll have music, phys ed, depending on what they choose. Some children do chorus, band, strings. Some children want phys ed every day. We asked you to fill out some forms about that. If you have any changes after this presentation tonight, please feel free to call the office or email tomorrow. But that's their choices for period 1. Period 2, they have core academics. So they'll have math, science, social studies, and English. And always keep in mind that in 6th grade, English meets twice a day. Period 3 will also be math, science, social studies, and English. Period 4 will follow the same. Lunch will be period 5. They use half the period to eat, and they use half the period for recess. Period 6, they'll have their specials. The 6th grade specials are art, STEM, health, or geography. Also during that period, if you have any special ed services, you'll get your skills and or your AIS, which is academic intervention service, which we have in both math and ELA. And please understand that it's run differently than it is at Cottle. So our AIS is to help the child for a short period of time, help them get over whatever difficulty they're having with vocabulary, with mathematical computation, get them in that AIS, get them the skills they need to move on successfully, then take them out of that AIS. Our goal is not to have them miss their specials continuously. So it's a class that you can come in or go out of by teacher recommendation. Your child may come home and say, I'm having some difficulties. We're happy then to put them in. Or you may be noticing something at home. Please feel free to call and we'll discuss whether or not AIS is something that would help them. 7th period, again, is a core academic subject. And period 8 switches halfway through the year. So it can either be a core academic subject or the specials that I just spoke about.
Thank you, Ms. D.
Sure.
This is all new, and obviously, this won't be the only time you'll be exposed to it. So if you didn't understand it fully, don't worry about it. It'll all work out. It always does every September. Just going to the transition. I know Buddy Day we're starting tomorrow, I believe.
Yes.
This is the first phase of the transition. Buddy Day, each class is coming up on a different day. Ms. D will be there, Mr. Sullivan, to take them to the sixth grade wing and for lunch. But I'll turn it over to Ms. D and Mr. Sullivan to talk about the transition and how it works so well.
So yeah, we recognize that our students and our families are all in different positions. So if this is your first child to the middle school, we understand that, it can be nerve-wracking. At the same time, it's important to recognize that, the middle school and Cottle are in communication with each other to ease that transition. So one of the first things that's been going on is that the fifth grade is now departmentalized. So, the students are getting used to having different teachers for different subject areas. That's done strategically to help them with the sixth grade transition, to make it less challenging. As Ms. D had also mentioned, all the sixth graders are right around our support staff offices and the administrative offices to offer support. When your students are in there for their first week of sixth grade, they're going to, make sure that they're supported by all the adults around them. So that's very strategic. We recognize that the social emotional needs are linked to academic success. And middle school students are just finding themselves. So a big part of it is helping them to navigate those challenges. We understand that we can't shield them from any kind of, setback. We teach them to learn from their mistakes, and to help us with that, it's important to keep the communication loop open with the teachers and also the support staff. Ms. DiFrancesco does a great job hosting team meetings where all teachers get together to talk about the whole student, not only what's going on in the class, but how they appeared, and to make sure that they're okay. We understand that there are many different types of life-changing events that happen at this age. So please be in contact with both myself and Ms. DiFrancesco if there are any changes or stresses in the home life that we need to be aware of, so we can make changes as needed. It's not just all about the academics, it's about understanding the whole child. With that being said, if you have any specific need, reach out to me and Ms. DiFrancesco and I. We've already spoken to some parents. Dr. Newman, the support staff down at Cottle, has already organized with us some students who are going to be coming up for another touch base with us, so they know who their support staff are. And every child is developing differently. It's important to remember that you're the expert on your child. That's Ms. D's biggest quote I really believe in. You're the expert on your child, so help us understand them with your knowledge. In middle school, every child wants to be accepted by a peer group. The challenging thing is that as they're developing, those peer groups are changing. So we work hard to make sure that they understand that. And to introduce them to new people and to new activities. You hear about different clubs that are at the middle school. I wholeheartedly recommend building that into their routine. So it's not something that you throw on them in the middle of the year, that they enter the sixth grade knowing that, I'm going to become an active member in the school community. And that helps forge what we call activity-based connections with people, so that, that they can form different friendships. As I said before, we work on developing the whole child. And lifelong lessons. Like I said before, we can't always shield ourselves from failures or mistakes or setbacks. It's important to recognize that your child may make mistakes, and that we're going to help them to overcome and learn from them. And a big part of the change in middle school is we're starting to lean on the child to give us the information that we're looking for in terms of what is going to help them best. I'm a parent myself, and I know I'm at that age where I'm speaking for my child. But as you start to get older, you want your child to start speaking for themselves, and that's in essence of middle school what we're going to be supporting them through. And if your role as a parent is going to continue to evolve. You'll be more in the background, you'll be more advising, and your children are going to be growing up to be young adults and making their own decisions. And that's the exciting part of watching your child grow through the stage.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Moving along, delivery of instruction. Basically, the Chromebooks have been an integral part of our instruction and learning for nearly a decade. We were one of the first in Westchester and in the region really to go to one-to-one. So our teachers, I'm very, very proud of how versed they are. Experience is a great teacher, and our teachers are highly experienced with technology and use of Chromebooks and one-to-one instruction. Google Classroom, obviously it's been going on at Cottle. I think they're in the second year now. So it's very familiar to your student. Obviously, the middle school, they use it for submitting assignments, communicating with staff, and staying organized. The panel can back up if there any additional information they'd like to give. Active learning, obviously research tools and careful implementation of technology. We use blended learning, inquiry-based active learning, differentiated instruction to emphasize content and knowledge building. So we have the curriculum and the knowledge that needs to be received by the student. We use several modalities to really instruct them to learn. Obviously, websites, I'm not sure how they're used at Cottle, but they facilitate daily lesson and communication. Ms. D, would you like to add anything else? Mr. DeBellis?
So the only thing that I'd like to say, if I may, is that for all the 5th grade parents coming up, I know that I think Mrs. Gorse's posts most of her assignments on Google Classroom. Every 6th grade teacher will post their assignments on Google Classroom every day. All their notes that they took during the day, all this new information they may have learned. They'll have Quizlet posted. They'll have little videos posted. They'll have things to help your child learn the lesson if they didn't get something during the class period. So you can go on now. You can go to Mr. Moore. I think it's mrmoore.net. You can go on Mr. Greco's website, and you'll see some of the stuff that they post for the kids to help them when it comes to a quiz. So I think getting used to that is a little scary because I know all the teachers at Cottle don't do it yet. And it's overwhelming, but Mr. Moore, who was unable to be with us tonight, is also part of the IT team, and he'll be one of their 6th grade teachers. So if they're having any difficulty, or if mom and dad, you're having any difficulty, please reach out. Mr. Moore's happy, absolutely will walk your child through anything. Will also help you learn how to navigate Google Classroom if it's something you need help with.
Thank you. Just talking from a teacher's perspective, Mr. Moore would have been able to verse you on this, but we've had great notes, and I just wanted to talk to you. Basically, we have a core subject team approach. Ms. D will talk more about the team meetings in a minute. We have reading in the content areas, also a lot of writing in the content areas. We introduced the writing revolution at the middle school, high school several years ago. It is basically a great strategy for students to learn to write, and also a great strategy to improve your critical thinking. I talked about technology, and Mr. Sullivan talked about communication. That's communication from the student to the adults. We're trying to work with students at the middle school, so by the time they get to high school, they know how to advocate for themselves, which is a critical skill in career and life success. Homework, it's usually nightly. We have long-term assignments also that are research-based. The teachers work with the students. They don't just give the assignment. It's obviously there's a lot of hand-holding, and they guide the students towards success. The science of learning, differentiated instruction. We've already talked about that, but just to remind you, as I said in March, there was a seminar given to the teachers. Each teacher went in and we learned about research of the brain, how students learn differently. Differentiated instruction through technology is part of the culture of the middle school. And obviously we look for lifelong learners. That's the goal here, both at the middle school and the high school. Building curiosity is essential. Having knowledge is one thing, but building curiosity with the knowledge is really the key to success. And the third component, which goes with self-advocacy, is really learning to work hard. It's the most important factor in success. And we try to have the students motivated so they're curious, learn, and work hard. Ms. D, Mr. Keogh, Ms. Sullivan, any follow-ups? Did I cover it?
I just wanted to let the parents know that in our team meetings that we have bi-weekly, it's not just with the teachers. Dr. Linehan attends those team meetings. Mr. Sullivan attends those team meetings. So it's really a team approach, a full team approach from administration to support staff, to those teachers, to your children. It's a real group effort, and you need to understand that if you want to meet with the teachers at any point, we can do it within 24 hours. We'll call a team meeting. We'll get you together. We don't want kids to feel bad or sad. We want to rectify whatever may be causing them some angst if that's happening. And we try and do that turnaround within 24 hours. And it's a good time for you to meet with the teachers. And as Mr. Sullivan said, we did meet with several parents already. If there's any other parents who want to set up meetings with us prior, I had some parents meet with some teachers already because they were concerned. So certainly if it's something you need to do, please let us know sooner than later so that you can, I want to quell any anxieties you may have over the summer. I want you to enjoy your time off.
Yeah, so the team meetings really, it integrates really successful feedback and follow-up, which is critical. So information comes to Ms. D or administration. She immediately follows up as fast as possible to alleviate any concerns, to communicate to the parents, and the loop goes back to the teachers. So there's a mechanism in place that is highly successful and allows for really efficiency in working with your student.
Dr. Linehan, I'd also emphasize the word integrated is used a lot, and that's really important because I think sometimes when you make the transition from elementary school to a departmentalized middle school program, there's this idea that there's so many different things going on. But, if there's one thing I would say, in addition to the curriculum instruction, is that integrated approach. So Dr. Linehan mentioned the writing revolution, but you'll very often see, if you walk into a social studies classroom, similar strategies that are being used to introduce the content being reinforced in their ELA classrooms, and similarly with math and science. So that integration piece that you hear in relation to the communication, you also hear it in the curriculum and instruction, and that's all very purposeful to give these students a very cohesive, comprehensive experience. And there's a lot of work behind the scenes, but I think it's something that the Tuckahoe Middle School does exceptionally well.
Thank you. Moving along, I think Mr. DeBellis.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Scott DeBellis. I'm the assistant principal for both the middle and the high school. So I think everyone has spoken about the transition, and part of that is starting to understand the routines and the procedures that the students will go through. And again, starting tomorrow, students will get a chance to go through Buddy Week, which it basically is a chance to see the school operating in its normal capacity. They'll get a chance to meet the teachers and staff, and they'll get a chance to see the building. At least it'll start to relieve some of that anxiety, and it'll build some confidence that they know where to go. Again, I'm sure that it'll take them a little bit of time when they first start out in September, but we will have an orientation in August as well. And hopefully the multiple exposure will allow them to build that confidence when they do finally get here. We do change classes. We have 8 periods in the day. Students only have about 3 minutes to change those classes. So, they don't have a lot of time to socialize. It's more about getting from one area to the next. Most of the classes, like everyone said, are in one location or one wing, but you do have some outliers. You do have the chorus or strings or phys ed, so they will have to move a little bit, and we try to make sure the students understand. Go to your class. If you need to use the restroom or you need to do something, just check in with the teacher. Make sure they know where you are, and just make sure that we're able to find you. God forbid there's an emergency in the building. We need to make sure everyone is accounted for. Attendance. I think you've heard a lot about the academic achievement and success and attendance. It's no secret. Students that are in school more do well. And, it's critical that they're there every day. We know students will get sick, and we know that there will be emergencies, but limiting those days is of the utmost importance. Also, if you are going to be absent, I will send some information over the summer as well with the specifics, so you don't need to write it down, but we ask that you notify the attendance office, and we ask that you also please send documentation to us so that we can code that attendance inside of Power School correctly. If you go on to the website, our attendance policy is posted, so you can see what absence is considered to be a legal absence versus what is not a legal, but rather an illegal absence. So please, again, try to make sure that we create that habit of being in school every single day. And that's something Ms. D and Mr. Sullivan work extremely well with families. If there's an issue why a student doesn't want to go to school, we have to try to identify and then come up with a solution as to why and how to get them back in there every day. And technology, we've heard a lot about the Chromebooks. It's important for students to charge that Chromebook. Again, that becomes a routine. They've got to make sure that when they come into school, that Chromebook is charged. And it's a good idea to bring a charger with them so that in case they need or they've used it throughout the day, they can recharge that. A couple of other pieces of technology, though, are also Power School. And that's something that I think parents and students will learn to use, because that is a big communication as well as technology piece. Assignments are posted, how the students did on quizzes or tests, that'll be up there as well. So getting into the habit of learning to use Power School is going to be very helpful to parents, so that they can see and keep track of how the student is doing and what's going on with assignments and how they've been doing on their assessments. And then finally, just technology, social media. We know it's part of their everyday life. And as the parent of a middle school child, one of the routines that my wife and I do is we check our son's phone on a nightly basis. We're looking through his account, we're looking through text messages, we are trying to be involved so that we know what's happening. There's a lot of responsibility that goes along with the technology and the social media. So we ask for your partnership and your help when it comes to just monitoring and just checking, because I think that that's a critical component that we see in society today.
Thank you,
Next
Mr.
slide.
Bellis.
And Mr. Sullivan had spoken about it, but clubs, activities, these are when students get to follow their passion. And we know academics are critical. We know how important it is for them for their future. But if you take a look, we have a very rich offering of clubs and activities that students can get involved with. And we think it's something that, Mr. Sullivan said, they do from the beginning. It's a way for students to develop socially. They build bonds, they develop friendships, they maybe meet new people and become exposed to people that maybe they didn't ordinarily hang out with, or they haven't been hanging out with, during the elementary years. Emotionally, it enhances their confidence and allows them to build self-esteem. So again, very important for them to get involved with clubs. We typically will have a club fair in the fall, so that students will get an opportunity to learn about the different clubs, ask questions, and it's coming from peers. So it's coming from older students that are, in the clubs or involved with the different programs, and they get a chance to see what exactly it's all about and talk a little bit, so that they can explore and figure out exactly what it is that they would like. Last thing I'll just mention is we do eligibility at the middle school and high school. And we need to ensure that if you're going to participate, that academically you are up to par. So we'll explain that a little bit more as we get further along into August or September. We do it for every progress report as well as every marking period. But if you want to participate, then one of the requirements is that you are doing well academically. So this allows us to keep that emphasis on the academics, and also, I think, allow them to participate in the clubs that they have a passion for.
Okay, Spirit Day and activities, Ms. DeFrancesco.
So, kids can run for GO and they can be elected. They give speeches to try and win their position that they want to have in the student government. And those who don't want to run for a position in the student government can still be very involved in the GO. Ms. Benedetti ran it this year. She did a great job of getting all students involved and making everyone feel welcome. So one of the things that goes into being part of the GO and being involved is picking what we're going to do for Spirit Week. Spirit Week, they do different things every day. So one day may be Pajama Day, which happens to be my favorite day. I wish they do it every day. They get to do Pajama Day. People come in pajamas and crazy slippers. They may do Hat Day. They may do Team Day. Usually on a Friday, it ends up in Black and Orange Day or for the school spirit. So that's really important for the kids to get involved with and be part of. And a lot of the sixth graders really like to join it. And Mrs. Benedetti is one of the sixth grade teachers, so the kids will get to know her quickly. And she's very encompassing when it comes to that stuff. Special days that they have during the school year, or they do different fundraisers during the year. They have different activities. You may get to buy a flower to give to somebody on Valentine's Day. There's bake sales for clubs and fundraisers for different events. We collect hats and coats to give to different shelters. That's one of the things that the National Junior Honor Society does as one of their activities usually. But those change, and the kids who are involved in the school will help decide those days. Again, another reason to be involved and important. That goes along with community drives, anything that we see that's going on in the community. We want the kids to be involved. We want them to be part of it. We advertise for I'm going to get it wrong, the kids who do the shovel. They shovel for the
Snow
elderly.
angels.
Snow angels.
The snow angels. There you go. Thanks, Eric. For the snow angels, we always have a few kids that get involved in that. There's a lot of stuff they do. We have different assemblies regarding anything that may come up for the children. We talk about what's expected of middle school children. We talk about things or situations that may come up. Myself and Mr. Sullivan usually go in and do an assembly on some such topic in individual classes, so we can meet with the kids. It's a smaller environment. Kids tend to ask questions more when they're in a smaller environment and they feel safer. There's class speakers that come in. One that's coming up shortly is an expert's coming in on Egypt. They just studied Egypt in social studies, and Mr. Moore is having a class speaker who's going to come in and do a presentation on Egypt and show artifacts and things like that. So they have a lot of stuff like that that goes on throughout the year in each of your child's classrooms. Mr. Sullivan, you want to add anything to that? Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered, a big part of it. I think something else to remember as parents is, this goes back to what we were saying before. A lot of this is built into the routine that you establish early on. So it's, so whether it's joining a club, whether it's, whatever patterns you set up for homework, whether it is staying for after school help, it's important to establish a routine ahead of time so that any changes that are necessary aren't such a shock. They're going through so many changes themselves. Any sense of stability and familiarity is just going to be such a huge part of success for your child.
Thank you. Yeah, in summary, I think, we're a small district. The middle school is one of the smaller middle schools, as is the high school. And the research tells you that small schools of less than 400 students are the most effective. Students develop relationships. They get to really talk about self-advocacy. We talked about learning to relate to adults. And the teachers get to know the students very, very closely, as opposed to large schools where obviously there are deficits to that approach. So it's small school research is really what is recommended, and we follow it. And we're very fortunate that we have this size of the school. There are some disadvantages, like there are to anything in life, but basically we maximize the advantages of a small school. So I think that's the last slide. I think we're open for questions. You can put them in the chat. Mr. Keogh will.
Sure. If anyone's interested in asking a question, you can just type it in the chat. We will be able to see it, so I'll read it out. Dr. Linehan, the first question was asking if we'd be sharing the slides anywhere.
Well, we are recording this. We could post it on a link on the middle school website. That would come with the slides.
Great.
So just check the middle school website and we'll put it under important announcements.
A question came in about what time school starts.
7:42, the first class begins. We encourage students to be in by 7:35 and proceed to their first period class. We're all in the halls, greeting the students. So, like I said, it's about relationships with adults. So 7:42 is the answer.
And what time is the end time?
2:30.
And the question about whether or not there's a morning program for parents who have to work.
No, not the middle school, high school. The earliest drop off, I believe, is 7:20. I mean, the kids can get breakfast at the cafeteria, and then they report to the auditorium.
When do students get their schedule?
Ms. D?
Go ahead, Bart. You want to do it?
No, that's right.
The schedule should be out before I leave on summer break. So the schedule should be out by the last week of June.
They will. Guidance will be in August if you have any questions. So when you get the schedule, if you get it early enough, you want to call. But after they leave on the 24th, guidance comes back in the summer, late August. So for now, there'll be an update on that.
Are core academic classes organized by skill level, or are all core classes at the same level?
So in sixth grade, the classes are heterogeneously mixed. There is no honors class. There is no honors curriculum in sixth grade. So they're all mixed in together. So if they have a science class with 18 other kids, their social studies class may have 18 different children in it.
Do you yet know the date of August orientation?
No, it's usually the week before the teachers come back. We'll get that posted on the district calendar.
How is bullying handled, and is it a problem at Tuckahoe Middle School?
Mr. DeBellis?
So we have a code of conduct, and obviously behavior is expected to be in line with that code of conduct. So I think, like Mr. Sullivan and Ms. D talked about, trying to help students, whether it be with relationship building or understanding what is going on or what's the cause of conflict, is usually one of the strategies. We meet with every grade level, sixth grade all the way up through 12th grade, within the first day or two, to talk with students about expectations, about code of conduct. I will send that out to all parents so they have that available during the summer. We talk about DASA, we talk about what it means and what are protected groups. And then obviously each situation is going to be a little bit different. So about trying to resolve that conflict and teaching students how to handle different situations together. I think that's ultimately the goal, so that we can try to move forward, because they are going to spend a lot of time together.
Do students have lockers?
Yes, we will assign students lockers. They are optional. If students do not want to use a locker, that it's up to them. But we will talk about that a little bit more at the orientation. I think the last 2 years or so, teachers have done an exceptional job of digitizing most things. So they are not carrying as many books back and forth. That's something that will lighten up, so that they're not, having a 70-pound student carry a 35-pound book bag every day. So, there are some benefits, and we noticed this year that a lot of students chose not to use a locker, but we will assign everyone a locker.
Are there school-sponsored sports?
Not for sixth grade. Modified sports begin in seventh grade for the middle school students. So typically at this age of sixth grade, students are involved in either the youth sport organizations or outside organizations, but it's not until seventh grade that the modified sports begin.
And that's not our policy. That's the state policy. It's not our school
Correct.
policy.
That's District 1, correct.
A question about those first period selections. The question is whether or not they've submitted just band or music, or if they've submitted other information.
So the only thing they can submit for the period 1 specials is if they like to join chorus, band, strings, or just have gym. So everyone's going to get gym. It's state mandated, but they can pick 2 other musics if they're interested as well, or they could pick 1 other music, or they can just have gym.
Right. Is there a limit to how many clubs the students can join?
No, we encourage it, but we don't want to overextend them, though.
Right. It's just a matter of balancing, I think.
5 days in a week. Just to confirm, students will get their own orientation at middle school next week. So I guess maybe the question's about, like, what's the buddy program that you were mentioning?
So tomorrow's our first day. I believe tomorrow's Mr. Girardi's class is coming up. Mr. Girardi's class will be buddied up with Dr. Trisselli's class, and the children will meet in the auditorium at 10:30. They'll be met by administration, myself, Mr. Sullivan. We'll give a brief hello to the children. They will get with their buddies that they will be given tomorrow when they get here, and they will be able to show them around the sixth grade wing, show them where our offices are, the administration offices are, their classrooms, the nurse, where they can get, where the TV is in front of the school so they can see what's going on for the day. Then they will show them the library, the gym, etc., the music wing. And then they will go to lunch with them and they'll have lunch with us. And then at 12 o'clock, they'll bring them back to the auditorium and myself and Mr. Sullivan will bring them back to Kyle.
Can we still change the music selection?
Of course.
What time is lunch?
11:03, I think.
Yeah, 11:05 is the beginning of that period. So it's 11:05 and goes for about 47 minutes. So I think 11:56 or so is the end of the period.
Will parents be getting a supply list for the classes?
Yeah,
Yes. So the teachers work on the supply list. They've already started actually working on the supply list. And as Mrs. DeBellis and Dr. Linehan indicated, Mr. DeBellis said it great. We don't want the kids to walk around with 70-pound backpacks. So they try to digitize as much as they can. I know that in 6th grade, they'll have a social studies book that they leave at home. I know that they will, those days of those big, huge textbooks that we used to carry around are no more, but they will be getting a supply list.
Do you monitor for abusive behavior or threats on social media, or do you rely on parents to do that?
Well, we don't have access to students' individual social media accounts. So if there is something that's brought forward to us from a parent or a student, then obviously we will request or investigate and look into that. But parents have access to their children's social media accounts or text messages. So that is something that, requires a partnership. So we do ask parents to monitor that, but we will look into or investigate if there is something that's brought forward to us.
Where is the drop-off area?
So we have the buses will drop off on Siwanoy Boulevard. And parents that are dropping off will do so on Middle Road. And again, I'll send out a communication over the summer about that. It's very important that parents drop off only at Middle Road up to a certain point. And the reason being is we don't want to have students crossing the street while buses are dropping off or loading or unloading children. So at a certain point, once we close that back entrance, then parents will have to bring students over to the main entrance. But again, we want to get them in before school starts so they're not rushing and starting their day in a bit of a panic.
What grade do honors level courses begin?
we have acceleration, 8th grade in algebra and earth science. This year we'll have everybody be taking earth science in the 8th grade, but mostly it's math, acceleration, and we really monitor that to make sure students are successful. And accelerating is nice in the 8th grade, but we want them to be, for instance, in math, we'd like them to be in AP calculus by the time they're seniors. So getting them on the right track is one thing, but keeping them on the right track for success, if you're accelerated, is really critical. So we have long discussions if needed regarding the impact of acceleration.
Is the August orientation just for kids, or is it for kids and adults?
For the 6th grade, it's for kids and adults.
Is there a back to school night where parents can meet the teachers?
We love that. Hopefully next October, yes, the answer hopefully is yes. That would be so nice.
Mr. Moore's Egypt expert is on the call and says that they're very excited for their presentation. Are Chromebooks supplied to students?
Yes. Typically within the first week or so, students will receive their Chromebook.
What is the cell phone use policy?
Well, we ask them not to make calls or receive calls during class, obviously. But I think we try to allow the students to be responsible. The expectation is that the cell phones are put away during class. There is obvious, unless a teacher uses it for some particular reason. They could be doing an assignment or something academically related with it. But if that's not the case, then the cell phone should be silenced and turned off and put away. So, they're not being used during academic time.
Yeah, I mean, the cell phone is, it's a behavior management issue or concern. The teachers manage it very well. There's basically class rules and you follow it.
And just so everybody knows, there's a phone in our office that the children are certainly allowed to use anytime they want. There's a phone in the high school conference room. So there are phones available if the kids need to make phone calls during the school day.
When do clubs start?
Usually late September. We have the fair first, get kids motivated and involved. And, by early October, they're rolling.
I heard that track was available for 6th graders. Is that correct? What are security? You're saying no. I don't know if anyone is just listening. What are security procedures for after-school activities?
So we have a person at the front desk, a security monitor until 4 p.m., which covers students at extra help, as well as waiting for the late bus. Our athletic director, Mr. Tobin, will schedule security for different athletic events and ensure if we have some sort of activity or event going on, then we will probably have security monitors there for special events. It just depends on, I know it's a broad question, but we try to ensure that we obviously have people available, or either, we'll contact Eastchester Police Department for, large events such as homecoming or things like that. And we try to have more of a presence there as possible.
If we'd like to change our specialist choice, who should we email?
Me.
Is there a homework club?
There's after-school help 3 days a week. So the middle school has after-school help on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And there will be a late bus for that drops off in several different locations in Tuckahoe. So the kids can use that to come and do their homework. The kids can use that to actually ask questions and get extra help. A lot of the 6th graders come right away. They want to be there before a test. They want to get to know their teacher better. They go if their friends go. And then it kind of peters out until they really need extra help, or they feel like they need extra help in something. But please encourage your kids to come. It's a great place to get their homework done. Each teacher has to give an hour after school. Some break it up over 2 days, so they do 2 half hours. Some say an hour. You'll be getting that schedule by the end of September, the beginning of October. Homework after school help starts the first week in October.
What time is the late bus?
Late bus is usually 3:40.
Are
We'll make
students allowed?
announcements.
Oh, sorry,
We'll make announcements to the kids. It may change slightly next year.
got it. Are students allowed to use the library after school to study and do homework?
If we have coverage, sometimes the extra help at the end of extra help, they will meet at the library and wait for the late bus there.
Where is the nurses? Where are the nurses located?
Right next to the principal's office.
First floor.
Is there an emergency plan in place in the event that a weapon is brought to school?
Good
Yes.
question. So again, I think school safety is on the front of everybody's brain right now, given everything that's been going on. But this has also been a practice of ours for, many years. So we have a security consultant firm called Altaris, who I work closely with. I am the building safety team leader. I also chair our district safety team. So we do have a building emergency response plan, which is a confidential document due to the information that is in there. during our orientation, or I should say during the beginning of the school year, that is one of the things that I will speak with students about, the various emergency situations. We also have a school resource officer that the district has invested in, that is present and splits time between our building as well as Cottle. So all of those pieces together are, the different ways that we will handle any emergency situation, not just a weapon, but other ones that might arise as well.
Is there a bus monitor?
We do not have monitors on the bus, no.
Should we have any concerns with bullying or other social media concerns, who should we contact first?
If you have a concern, obviously, regarding an infraction of the code of conduct, you are always welcome to email me or give me a call. But I think, through all the years that I've been doing this, I think one of the most important steps is to speak with your son or daughter first and get context and find out what's going on. There are obviously pieces that go along, and it could be over several days. And again, I think that's why it's important to monitor that social media use or group text or the different methods of communication that the students are using. Snapchat obviously is a huge one, and their messaging on Snapchat, not always on their cell phones or in necessarily in a text.
Are school issued devices mandatory at school, or can we buy them a device to use instead?
Devices have to be the school issued devices for monitoring student usage. BOCES supports and Mr. Keogh and Rick Martin, who is our BOCES technician, does an exceptional job of helping to manage all of the technology needs, but they are not permitted to use their own device. They must use a school issued device.
What grade do students begin a foreign language?
7th grade. Sorry,
Deb.
Deb.
So half of, they get either Spanish 1 or Italian 1 split over 2 years. The first half of it starts in 7th grade, the second half of it in 8th grade. It culminates in a large test, speaking, writing, and it's part of their high school transcript. So it's important that, they do well on that, because it's going to be something that's sent to colleges.
When they go to 9th grade, they'll be taking level 2 per Ms. D's point.
Are doors all locked from the outside?
Yes. One of the components of our safety plan is what's called a single point of entry. So everyone that is using or visiting the building will go through that main entrance. We then will do our screening and vetting process from there.
Do 6th graders ever have contact with high school students, or are they in a separate wing?
They're not in a separate wing. High school students may pass by the 6th grade wing on their way to chorus. I will tell you, it works amazingly well. Our high school students are very respectful. I've been here 19 years, and I think there was only one issue with a middle school and a high school student in my 19 years here. So, high school kids don't even, they're in another world. The 6th graders are so small, they don't even, and they're all respectful in the hall though. And we're out there anyway, but I've had no issues, and it works very well. And as a matter of fact, they get to see, older brothers and sisters eventually. So it adds to the small school spirit.
Some of the high school students also work at task. So they might, supervise them or get to know them a little bit through some of those after school programs as well. I've seen that. And I think that's really nice when you see that relationship get built.
And I will say, sometimes our high school teachers will go visit their middle school teachers. So that tells you a lot about the middle school and their inter-instructional program.
Point of clarification, the middle school and high school students do ride buses together though, right?
Yes.
Yes.
If we need to get in touch with our child about something such as a change in pickup, who do we contact to ensure the child gets the message?
You can contact the main office, and they will, tell them, what time your child needs to be picked up, and we'll have to call the classroom and have them come down.
And there's, God forbid Mrs. Pinto's not there one day. They certainly can call the guidance office secretary, Mrs. Nicoletto. She'll make sure they get it. And Mrs. DeBellis' secretary, Ms. Hoffman. So there are several people that they can call if you need to get a message to your child.
Is there a task for sixth graders?
Task program at Cottle.
Yeah,
I'm
is
not-
there one for sixth graders?
There's no, not one in our building. I'm not sure what the rules are down at Cottle for sixth graders.
When will Honor Society information be relayed or introduced?
Students have a chance to really apply for the Honor Society in seventh grade.
And I believe that is the end of questions. Did anyone else have any other questions that they wanted to submit? Anything I might have missed?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. We really appreciate it. We're around if you have any questions, electronically or feel free to call. But I also like to thank our panelists. Mr. Salvan, he had to run out and pick up his child, Ms. DeFrancesco, Mr. DeBellis, and Mr. Keogh. Thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you all.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.